It's great to see you all again, dear viewers, on the Nguyen Hui Strange Stories channel. Here, we share with each other everyday spiritual stories sent in by people from all over the country. Today is letter number 492, a story sent to us by Auntie Nam. The story took place in 2015. It happened right in Auntie's neighborhood. To share a bit, Auntie said her family is pretty well off. She and her husband have 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters, and all of them are already married. Currently, she and her husband live with Min, their youngest son, and his wife. Auntie said that she's always gone to the temple and done charity work. She donates money to help people in difficult situations, especially in her neighborhood. Whenever there are families in need, she's always there to help. Sometimes she gives rice or salt. Other times, if someone is sick or has health problems, she gives them money to help out. Whenever someone needs help, Auntie helps. Sometimes people can't pay, so she helps as much as she can. If someone borrows money, she lends it. She's clear. If she gives, it's a gift. If it's a loan, it must be repaid. Even if it's just 1,000, it must be paid back in full. Auntie might give someone a few hundred or even a few million to help them get medical treatment. But if that person says they're borrowing, even if it's just a few hundred or even just a few tens of thousands, they still have to pay her back. Alright, there's one thing about Auntie. For example, no matter how poor or hard up someone is, she thinks it's okay to go ask for help or borrow money. But what she hates most is stealing and then blaming it on that, saying, "Poverty breeds crime," making excuses that it's because they're too poor that they do those things. And then there's another thing like this. When I do charity, I do it from my heart. I want to help others to share some of their hardships. But there are some people who think that's my duty, my responsibility to them. When I help, they accept it, they smile and talk nicely. But when I don't help, they turn around and curse me, saying I'm rich but stingy and all that. Then they even wish bad things on me, like hoping I'll go bankrupt and stuff like that. I'm sure that among everyone listening here, most of you have probably run into people like this at some point in your lives. This story that Aunt Nam sent in today, I've been leading up to it just to talk about someone like that. In the neighborhood, there's a family. The husband's name is Boo, and the wife's name is Han. Both sides of their families are poor. So when they got married, they didn't have any land or property at all. They mainly made a living by working as hired laborers. Besides that, they also fished to make a living. Sometimes they set fish traps, sometimes they cast nets, and sometimes they used electric shock fishing. Electric shock fishing is banned by the government, but many people in the countryside still use it. If you're unlucky, you get caught, that's all. Because people need to eat, you know. These two were so poor that they didn't even have a piece of land to build a house on. Their house had to be built on a plot belonging to Uncle Hai, their neighbor. Uncle Hai was a distant relative of Boo. Seeing how poor the couple was, he felt sorry for them. He had a piece of land lying unused. That land, he said, was meant for his son Din. Din was still studying in Kendo at the time. Uncle Hai made it clear from the start that he was just lending them the land to build a house on. Later on, if Din ever came back here to live, Then they would have to return the land so Din could build his own house. Or if Uncle Hai ever needed to use the land for something, they would have to give it back to him. When it came time to build the house, the neighbors pitched in. Some gave leaves, some gave wood and other things. Everyone in the neighborhood chipped in a little so they could lay down a cement floor, so we didn't have to live on bare earth. Honestly, both of us were really grateful. At that time, we felt so touched. And whenever there was any work in the neighborhood, people would call the two of us to help out so we could earn some money, like transplanting rice, replanting rice, harvesting rice, even working as construction helpers or weeding gardens. Basically, besides giving us fish, the neighbors also gave us a fishing rod, so to speak. Even though the neighbors were so generous in helping them, this couple still lived without any sense of gratitude. Like Auntie Nam said at the beginning of the story, if someone gives you something, it's a gift, but if they lend you something, you have to pay it back. But the couple always tried to avoid paying, still deliberately borrowing things, but then just assumed they didn't have to return them. It's like they just wanted people to give them things for free. Once An Han went to Hung's house saying her child was sick. She borrowed a few $100,000 dong to pay hospital fees. She promised in a few days when Bu got paid, they'd pay it back. Hung lent her the money, but then months went by and there was no sign of repayment. Hung asked money back. She said she forgot and promised to pay it back in a few days, but after 10 days there was still no word from her. Hung went to ask for her money again, but she just complained about this and that, then promised to pay in a few more days. But every few days, Hung would have to ask again. After being asked many times, she reacted. In the end, she paid back the money, but not the full amount. She owed 400, paid 300, so about 100 remained. But Hung said when she handed over the money, her attitude was really sulky. When Hung had just turned her back to leave, she even told her son, "I had a few hundred and they took it all. Tomorrow you'll have to go without milk, son." Who told your parents to be poor? That's how it was. Normally, by common sense, when someone lends you money, it's out of kindness and goodwill. We should be grateful and take the initiative to pay it back. You shouldn't wait for them to come and ask for it. This person owed for a really long time, kept dragging it out, and wouldn't pay back. Even after being asked 5, 7 times, she still had that attitude, talking as if Hung was extorting or robbing her. At the start of the next month, when Hung reminded her, she claimed she had already paid. After some back and forth, she finally admitted she forgot and said, "I'll pay next time. There's still 100 left." But then she stayed quiet and never brought it up again. Hung saw it was only 100,000 dong, so she let it go and stopped asking. But it wasn't just Hung. Others had the same experience. Seeing she was poor with many kids, people felt sorry and lent her money. But they had to ask many times before she paid, and sometimes she paid in full, sometimes not, always leaving a bit unpaid. Then stayed silent until people gave up. Gradually, everyone in the neighborhood avoided her. She even went around bad-mouthing people, saying, "It's just a few 100,000. Why keep asking? They're rich but stingy. Keep acting like that and one day you'll lose everything. Then no one will help you." Every year, when it was time to transplant rice, Aunt Nam hired An Han to help at her house. That year, An Han came and asked Aunt Nam for an advance to take her kids to the doctor or something like that. She said she would borrow money and repay it from her pay after transplanting rice. Aunt asked how much and would lend her that amount. She borrowed 1.2 million, equal to 5 days' wages for 2 people transplanting rice. A day's pay was 120,000. She said when the time came she and Boo would work 5 days and that would be enough. Then, as it got close to the day for transplanting rice, Aunt Nam had already informed them in advance. But when the day came, they didn't show up. She went over to their house and only found the kids at home. When she asked, the kids said they had gone to transplant rice. She called, but no one picked up. By evening, around 7 p.m., Aunt called again but still got no answer. She walked back to their house and saw the whole family sitting there watching TV. When they saw Aunt, they acted like nothing happened. They even asked if something was wrong. Aunt asked, "Why didn't you help me transplant the rice seedlings?" Only then did they act surprised and say they forgot. Aunt asked, "Why didn't you answer my calls or call me back?" They said their phone was on silent, so they didn't hear. Aunt said, "It's too late today. Can you help tomorrow?" But they replied, "We forgot today and already agreed to help someone else. Can you find someone else?" And said, "Then why borrow money in advance? I told you 2 days ago, so how could you forget?" Now another group will help Aunt, so there's nothing more to say. They said they've agreed to transplant rice for the other side for 7 days, and now they've worked 1 day, so if they quit, they won't get paid. They asked, "Can we help after 7 days?" But Aunt said no. By then, the rice would be 15 days old. It must be transplanted now so it can keep growing. If we wait another 7 days, the rice will be 22 days old, and it would take 5 more days to finish transplanting. By then, the rice would be 27 days old, and it wouldn't be able to sprout new shoots anymore. Aunt said, "If you took the money, do the work. If not, return it so I can hire someone else." They complained they didn't have money now. They said they had to finish transplanting rice elsewhere first, and only after getting paid there would they have money to pay her. She was furious. She said from now on, she would never lend those two anything again. She also said she would never hire them again. She went home and hired someone else to transplant the rice. And 7 days later, when they got paid from the other place, they had to bring the money over and pay her right away. She went home and hired someone else to do the transplanting. Then, she had to pay 140,000 per person before anyone would agree, because it was urgent. She still had to grit her teeth and hire them. Money wasn't really the issue. Tens of thousands wasn't a big deal. As long as someone would work for her, that was enough. What really bothered her was the way the couple behaved. That just wasn't right. Then more than 10 days went by, and the couple still didn't say a word. He didn't mention anything about the money either. She asked for it. They said they hadn't been paid yet. When they got paid, they'd bring her the money right away. They pretended, apologized for the awkwardness, and told her not to worry. She went up to the place where the couple rented the house. The landlord told her that the rent had already been paid. So she asked, "If they already paid, why haven't you given me the money?" At that point, Mrs. Enhan pretended they hadn't paid and said, "I just came from there. If you want, check yourself. Go see if they've paid or not." She finally admitted they had paid, but she had spent all the money by mistake. She promised when Mr. Boo went to work in a few days, she would repay it, but it took months before the couple repaid the full amount. When people heard about this, everyone understood. This couple deliberately didn't do the work for Team Nam, right? They had already taken the money. If they did the work, they wouldn't have any money left. They'd have to deduct it from what they received, so they couldn't make extra. Instead, they worked for others to earn more, and as for Team Nam's money, they just pay it back little by little. After that incident, she was angry with those two. Whatever she needed, she wanted someone else to do it. However desperate, she never asked that couple for help again. Even when they came over to ask to borrow money, she wouldn't lend them any. Pretty much everyone in the neighborhood knew what that couple was like. Eventually, people just started avoiding them. That's how they treated their neighbors. But it didn't stop there. This Mr. Boo, he had another really nasty habit. He was a petty thief. He would often steal chickens and ducks from people in the neighborhood, either to sell them for money or to bring them home and cook for himself. It's not like people just randomly thought he was bad. There was always a reason behind it. At Mr. Locke's house, he raised chickens, and they were the fighting breed. People would give him regular roosters to sell, and he wouldn't sell a single one for less than 1,000,000 dong. He did build a coop, but it wasn't like the chicken coops you see in the countryside. There weren't any proper doors or high, sturdy fences or anything like that. Most of the chickens would sleep in the pigsty or just fly up into the trees to sleep. At that time, about every 10 days or half a month, he would lose a chicken. In the middle of the night, while he slept, he'd hear chickens squawking. Then they'd start flying around, jumping all over. When he went out to check, he saw chicken feathers scattered everywhere. The next day, when he checked again, he realized a big rooster was missing. Every 10 days or half a month, another chicken disappeared. This time, Locke was set on catching the thief. He watched for nights and finally found something. Sadly, he only saw the person's back. The thief ran fast, so he couldn't see his face. But, just saying it out loud, it really seemed like it was Boo. Then there was this one time when Locke happened to come across one of his missing chickens. The other person said they bought it from Boo. Boo had sold them several chickens, not just one. Locke went home and confronted Boo. Boo said maybe the chickens just look alike and you mix them up. Or maybe someone just doesn't like me and is being malicious. They're blaming me, but I didn't do anything. They told me to go clear things up face to face. But he didn't want to go and kept making excuses to avoid it. Seeing that in the end you couldn't resolve anything, so Locke didn't want to make a big deal out of it. People in the neighborhood raised ducks, but someone sneaks in to steal them. No one saw him take the ducks, but in the morning they were gone, and by noon, duck feathers were seen being carried down the street. His son was seen trading duck feathers for balloons. Asked about the duck feathers, he said they were from ducks Ms. Enhan lost this morning. When asked if he bought them, he said, "No, my dad caught them in the field and brought them home." A few times, people caught him in the act stealing ducks. When they did, he laughed, let the ducks go, and said he was just joking. But if no one saw him, he probably would have taken them for real, not just for fun. After that, people got scared. The whole neighborhood was afraid. In the end, everyone waited to see what price he would pay, right? That part is next. Get ready. There were so many times when people lost their ducks and suspected him, and he would always say this one really nasty catchphrase. So this Mr. Boo had 4 children, 1 son and 3 daughters. The oldest one was named Dat. He really loved this boy because he was his only son. Every time people suspected him, he would say, "I swear, I didn't steal any chickens or ducks from you. Honestly, I'd rather be poor and clean. I swear on my only son, if I ever stole anything, may you all catch him and may my family line end right here." People started yelling at him, saying, "Why do you talk like that? What did the kid ever do to deserve you swearing on him like that?" But he replied, "If I didn't do anything, what do I have to be afraid of? Swearing like this makes people believe me." And then that fateful day finally came. At that time, Dat was 7 years old. He had a puppy that he loved and carried around all the time. That evening, he went over to the neighbor's house to play, and as usual, he brought his puppy along. Normally, the dog was very well behaved, but that day, while Dat was carrying it down the street, the dog suddenly got restless, squirmed out of his arms, and ran across the road. Instinctively, the boy chased after it without even looking at the street. 2 young men came speeding by. They were driving pretty fast, but Dat ran across so quickly that they couldn't react in time. They hit the boy straight on. He died on the spot. Luckily, at that moment, a few people in the neighborhood saw what happened. The accident took place right in front of a house with a security camera, so it captured that moment. The 2 young men were driving in the correct lane and at the right speed. The fault was that Dat suddenly darted out on his own. That's why, when it was brought up,
As for the trial, the punishment for the 2 young men was actually quite light. Ever since Dat was hit and killed right at that spot, there have been continuous supernatural occurrences. That place used to be Miss Tao's house. That night, she heard her dog barking non-stop in the yard. She checked the security camera and saw that the dog kept looking out toward the road and barking, but when she looked outside, she didn't see anyone at all. She opened the door and went outside to take a closer look, but still didn't see anything. No one at all. The dog just kept barking loudly. She had to go out and scold it for a while before it finally went back inside. But for 3 or 4 nights in a row, the exact same thing kept happening. Until that night, the dog was still barking outside. As soon as she carefully opened the door and looked out toward the quiet, empty road, she paused for a moment, listening to the distant sounds. She clearly saw that it was Dat. He was standing right in front of her house, out by the road. Outside, she had hung a light bulb. Although it wasn't very bright, it was enough for her to clearly see that it was Dat and no one else. She screamed out loud, and in just the blink of an eye, he was gone. Her husband, Torn, heard her scream and ran out. At that moment, she slammed the door shut and ran inside, pulling the blanket tightly over herself. It wasn't until the next day that she was able to tell her husband what had happened. That afternoon, the couple went to buy votive paper and candies, brought them out to the street to make offerings, and prayed, asking him to go home. They told him not to stay in front of their house anymore. After the offering that night, the dog no longer looked outside and barked. Then one day, it was around a little after 6 p.m. It was just getting a bit dark, but you could still see the road. Then a couple rode their motorbike past Tao's house. Suddenly, while they were riding normally, the husband braked hard. The bike flipped over because he braked too suddenly and both of them fell, scraping their arms and legs all over. When people nearby heard the sound of the crash, they ran out to see what happened. The couple said that while they were riding, suddenly a little boy ran across the road. The husband braked hard and that's when the bike flipped. He even said that the boy ran across and then disappeared into the bushes. Across from Tao's house, there's an empty lot with a lot of trees and bushes. At first, people thought there really was a boy who ran across, so they called out for him to come out. But there was no sign of any boy. They searched everywhere but couldn't find anyone. It wasn't until Tao checked the security camera footage that she saw there was no boy at all. The couple just flipped the bike and fell on their own. So people started to believe that maybe what they saw at that moment was the spirit of Dat. At that time, the husband was completely sober, not drunk at all. There's no way he could have just imagined it. This story is just about 2 of the incidents people experienced, but actually, there have been many more. There were even cases where people passing by died suddenly, and villagers also saw the boy's spirit appearing and causing disturbances. Rumors spread everywhere. Someone advised Miss Nan to find a spiritual master to come and chant prayers at the spot to invite the boy's spirit to return or to send it to the temple. She followed the advice, asked the master to come and take the spirit to the temple. Since then, the spiritual disturbances at that spot have lessened. Accidents still happen there frequently, but when it comes to Dat's accident, people started to wonder, could it be that his father's reckless vows were the very cause of the karma that Dat had to bear? Clearly, he did steal, but whenever he was confronted, he would swear on his son's life. In the end, that led to such a heartbreaking incident. Yet even after everything happened, he still didn't change. In fact, he only did it more and more. Besides stealing chickens and ducks, he also went around stealing shrimp and fish from other people's ponds. As for Aunt Nam's pond, people there do 1 rice crop and 1 shrimp crop, and generally whichever crop they do, they have a good harvest. Those who have shrimp ponds almost never sabotage other people's ponds. They only take what they earn. Plus, they believe that in this line of work, if you go and ruin someone else's property, the spirits won't bless you. If you steal 1 from someone, you'll lose 10 yourself. That's why not only do they not steal from each other, but they also help watch over each other's ponds. Anjbu is someone who often goes out to stun fish. Normally, he does it in the canals, streams, or ponds where no one is farming, so nobody says anything, but sometimes he sneaks into other people's shrimp ponds to stun fish, and he's really sneaky about it. He waits for the exact moment when the owner isn't around the pond, then he goes in to steal fish by stunning them. Sometimes he even sets fish traps in other people's ponds. There are times when you're standing at one end and see him messing around, stunning fish at the other end. By the time you run down there, he's already disappeared. Basically, you can tell it's him just by looking from afar. But if you don't catch him red-handed, there's no evidence to accuse him of anything. For example, if you go to his house and confront him, he'll just say you must have mistaken him for someone else, that he would never do such a thing. He only sprays around the canals and ditches outside, not crazy enough to go into anyone's shrimp pond. Who would do something so outrageous? He even says he avoids walking past other people's shrimp ponds to prevent misunderstandings. He swears that if he ever stole electricity, may he be struck dead by it. Aunt Nam's shrimp pond is often poached by him using electric fishing. Min has staked out many times but still hasn't caught him. Honestly, Aunt says that every time her pond is harvested, it's at least 100 kilos of shrimp. When he poaches with electricity, at most he only catches 2 or 3 kilos, not much at all. But the problem here is that when what you raise gets stolen, it makes you really angry. People in the neighborhood say, Bo's family doesn't even farm shrimp, but they have so much shrimp at home they can't finish eating it and even sell it to others. Uncle Too's shrimp pond in the neighborhood is right next to an abandoned marshy plot. On the bank, there's a very big hole. Water from Uncle's shrimp pond flows through to that marshy plot, and when the water flows over, the shrimp go with it. When Uncle found out, he stuffed the hole with dirt to block it. But Uncle said he just couldn't understand why. He'd plug the hole today, but after a few days that hole would open up and water would flow through again. No matter how tightly he packed the dirt, he started to suspect that someone was behind it. So he kept watch, and that's when he discovered Mr. Boo. He was the one who dug that hole to let the water flow through, because that patch of swampy land was just unused land. No one was raising shrimp or fish there. If Uncle's shrimp wandered over there and Mr. Boo caught them, there was nothing anyone could say. He was fishing outside, not inside the pond. That time, Uncle was so angry he reported it to the local authorities. The commune officials came down, made a report, and issued an administrative fine, just a penalty to pay. They couldn't arrest him or do anything more serious than that. And this time, it was his turn. He, himself, had to pay the price for his act of theft. That day, while checking the pond, Mr. Min discovered Mr. Bung's body lying dead in his own pond. He was so shocked that he called the police. It was only then that they discovered he had been electrofishing to steal in Mrs. Thiep's pond number 5. Maybe the electric current was too strong or something, and it electrocuted him to death, just like the oath he had sworn before. In short, Mrs. Thiep said that what he did was wrong, but the price he paid was just too high. She never wanted that to happen at all. She was angry, yes, but seeing him die like that was really heartbreaking, especially for Miss Nan. Now there are 3 little kids left behind with no one to take care of them. After he died, his spirit kept wandering around the family home. Aunt Min and Uncle and Aunt Nam were often disturbed by it, especially during the time they were raising shrimp. So at night someone had to sleep out in the hut to keep watch. Either Aunt Min or Uncle and Aunt Nam would go out there to sleep, taking turns like that. That night, Uncle and Aunt Nam slept out in the hut. Uncle Nam had a habit. Before going to bed, he would walk around the shrimp pond with a flashlight to check if the shrimp had any problems. Sometimes the shrimp might get sick or run out of oxygen and float to the surface, you never know. So he would do a round to check, just to be sure. The pond is several dozen kong in size, so walking around it actually takes quite a bit of time. Normally, it would take him at least half an hour or more before he got back to the hut. But that night, he had only been gone for about 10 or so minutes. Then Auntie heard footsteps walking back and forth outside the hut. Then there was also a sound like someone scratching the wall with their hand. It sounded like a rustling, scratching noise. The hut was made with leaf walls after all. Auntie thought it was Uncle. She asked, "Why are you back so early?" She was a bit worried, thinking maybe he was tired or something. But she didn't get any answer at all. But then Auntie heard a heavy gasping sound. It sounded like someone struggling to breathe. Auntie got really worried, afraid something had happened to Uncle. She rushed out to the hut's door to look, but there was nothing there. Looking ahead, she saw Uncle Nam still shining his flashlight around the edge of the pond. Here, Auntie also shone her flashlight around the hut, but didn't see anything unusual at all. Auntie went back into the hut, but then she heard the sound of scratching at the leaves and that same gasping noise exactly like before. The more she listened, the clearer it became. It sounded like it was right next to her. At this point, Auntie was a bit shaken. She called out, "Who's there? Who's outside? Don't try to scare me, you hear?" Do you know what Auntie heard in response? She heard a laugh that sounded like it was mocking her. But this laugh to Auntie sounded eerie and unsettling in some way. Listening to it made her skin crawl. The more she listened, the more it sounded like Mr. Boo's voice when he was still alive. So Auntie just blurted out, "Is that you, Boo? You see me here all alone and you're trying to scare me, aren't you? I'm not afraid of you, you hear? You're dead already, so go get reincarnated. If you keep haunting me here, I'll beat you to a pulp. You hear me?" As soon as Auntie finished speaking, she heard that laugh grow even louder, and then suddenly it went completely silent. Auntie was a bit scared, so she turned on some Buddhist chants to listen to until Uncle Nam came back, and only then did she feel relieved. Then it was Min's turn, and then Uncle Nam's turn. They all got spooked by him like that. But the way he did it seemed more like he was just teasing or playing around, nothing too serious. Still, Auntie Nam thought that letting his wandering spirit roam out there like that wasn't good. But the problem was, if she asked Chinhan to hire a monk to come and chant to call his spirit home, it just didn't feel right to her. So she decided to do it herself. She went right to the spot where he passed away, burned 3 sticks of incense and prayed, reciting his name and the date and month he died. She prayed to the gods of wealth, the local deities, the land spirits, and her ancestors, asking them to help guide Boo's spirit back home so he wouldn't have to wander out here anymore. When she finished, she took the 3 incense sticks and walked back to the house. She walked slowly, praying quietly as she went. "But follow me, child, this way, child." Whenever the path was straight, she just walked normally, but whenever she had to turn, she'd say, "Dad, turn here, okay?" Depending on the spot, she'd pray for a left or right turn. She kept doing that all the way until she got into the village, then walked right up to the front door of his house. When she got there, she said, "This is your home. Go inside, child." Auntie didn't know if her way of doing things would actually work or not, but she just did it anyway, hoping it would help. A few days later, Nahan didn't tell Auntie directly. Instead, she told someone else, and that person then told Auntie Nam. She said that ever since Boo passed away, she had never once dreamed of him. But suddenly that night she dreamed of Boo. She saw him sitting outside on the porch crying his heart out. In her dream, she didn't realize he had already passed away. She thought he was still alive. She just asked him why he was crying. Then he reproached her, saying, "It's been so long. Why haven't you brought me home? You left me out in the fields in the paddies starving to death. I want to come home, but I don't know the way. Luckily, Auntie Nam still comes back, so I was able to return." She told him to come into the house, but he said she needed to prepare an offering meal the next day and invite him in. Only then could he enter. So that day, she quickly prepared a meal, made offerings, and prayed, inviting him into the house. And ever since that moment out at the shrimp pond, Uncle Tiem Nam and Min haven't been spooked anymore. It was also said that ever since Mr. Boo and his wife took an advance to transplant rice elsewhere and didn't help Tiem, Tiem had been upset. Tiem didn't ask them to work for her anymore, and when they asked to borrow money from Tiem, she refused. For a long time after that, the couple didn't dare to ask to borrow money again, because she knew she wouldn't be able to borrow anyway. That day, Tiem had a dream. She saw Mr. Boo standing in front of her house, looking very sad, but at that time, Tiem didn't even know he had already passed away. Tiem asked why he was sad, and he said that his child was sick and he didn't have money to take them to the doctor. "I was going to ask you to lend me some money, but I knew you were still upset with me, so I didn't dare to ask." Well, the trouble was between me and my wife. "Auntie, please forgive me. Now, if you care about the kids, please lend me some money, even at a high interest rate, so I can take them to the doctor." At that moment, I felt sorry for them too, so I said, "All right, if you need to borrow, I'll lend you as much as I can." Then he said, "If anything, I'll bring my wife and kids over to borrow." After that, he left, and that's also when I woke up. I thought it was just a dream. Just a figment of my imagination. But the next day, Miss Nan actually came to ask to borrow money to take her child to the doctor. Miss Nan said that lately she's been struggling but didn't dare ask me for help. She didn't dare ask anyone else either. Last night, she dreamed of Mr. Boo. He told her to come borrow 5 from me. He already asked you, and you already agreed. You just told her about that dream. You said it's not that you don't want to lend, not that you're selfish or anything, but if you borrow, you have to pay it back on time and properly. That way, next time people will be willing to lend again. That time, Nan also paid back on time, not like before when she used to delay. After Dat and Boo passed away, Nan changed too. She no longer owes people for a long time, and she doesn't have that habit of being sneaky or cutting corners like before. Later on, she was lucky enough to marry a man who had already been married once before, but he didn't have any children because he was infertile. He married Nhan, and he loved her kids as if they were his own. Their family life after that was quite warm and happy. This is a story sent in by Aunt Nam. It was something that happened to her own family. It's quite close to everyday life, but it really startled her. Normally, I believe in the law of cause and effect, but usually it doesn't come so quickly, not that fast. But this story, I have to tell it because the consequences came immediately. Doing something wrong, you suddenly have to bear the consequences, and just because of some small things, you end up paying a price that's far too high. Even now, she still feels love, still feels a deep regret in her heart about the story of Mr. Boo and Dat. So then, she tells this story hoping that everyone will pay attention and sometimes not make oaths like that just because of simple matters. The point is, even if you didn't do it, you shouldn't carelessly make such vows. It's not worth it for us to have to trade something for it. It's too big of a thing. Thank you, Aunt Nam. Thank you to everyone for watching. Wishing you all a good night.